right, first up, we have Justin. Okay, so you talked a little bit in your speech about how some of the products years ago were launched maybe a little bit too early for consumers, and how they just weren't ready for things like picking up at the store yet, which seems like such a native thing to do today.
Yeah.
So how now are you keeping yourself in check? How do you stay in tune with what the customer is doing and not getting ahead of yourself with the offerings that you're coming to market with?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is based on data and insights. So, one of the things that we talk a lot about as a team is, whenever there's something new that we're going to try or to explore, we always try to start with what is the outcome that we're trying to get after, and then trying to define what are some ways that we're going to measure it. I think as an industry, we certainly rely on, companies like Nielsen, IRI, Market Track. There are a lot of external data sources we look at to just understand as an industry what is shifting to online and what is remaining in the store, just to give us a sense, are we too fast? Are we just right? And then I think too, looking at your specific businesses, right? As a big retailer, we've got a lot of different categories and businesses that we look at. So also looking at penetration of those businesses. When you think about digital, we think about traditional buying in store. We also look at sales shift happening. So you see it faster in some categories, slower in others. And again, you can use those kind of outside resources. We work with a lot of CPG type vendors, right? And so they will give us data around, well, hey, in this part of the country, here's what they're doing in terms of, hair care, for example. This is the percent that this retailer is seeing online versus you guys. So I think you have to really go in knowing kind of what is your outcome of what you're trying to accomplish versus trying to define a solution. And then I think there's also, you have to look at different ways, the data sources that you have internally within your organization, but also what are some external sources that you can use to make sure you're continually, pulse checking to know, are you on the right track? Are you too fast? Are you behind? So those are some different things that we take a look at.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I like that you said you define your goals and objectives up front first. And I imagine that it's an evolution too, right? As you are looking at what data you're collecting and how your goals are mapping to that data, you're probably evolving those goals over time.
Oh, we are. We're all marketers, right, for the most part, and so we love to get in a room and just brainstorm a solution. We often walk out knowing what we want to do, but we don't really know what we're intending to go drive in terms of results or what we're trying to do. So it's a cultural thing. It certainly takes time. We're still very much working on it, but we're trying to walk into every situation or every new idea and trying to answer the outcome question first, and then kind of work backwards in terms of, what are we going to do to go accomplish it.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, you are very successful at it these days. Congratulations.
It's going well. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, Pam, PSL4 is an amazing product. You talked about Leah a little bit and about the benefits from the product for her life if this goes to market, when it goes to market. And can you talk about some of the not so obvious things that maybe we can expect from the product?
Yeah, I mean, I think when my boss, Ellen, back in, I think it was like late 2017, early 2018, said, hey, go take a look at all the foundational things. Like something is preventing people from investing in their retirement. Go take a look at the foundational things. So we looked at, we looked at debt, we looked at spending, we looked at emergency funds, which seems to be the foundational core of financial health. And people weren't able to save and they weren't able to pay down their consumer debt because of this crazy student debt. Yeah. So that seemed like a good area to focus on. We're also building a tool for credit card debt to help people there, and of course we have emergency funds as well. So we're really focused on that foundational piece. And surprisingly, it's not just young people. Like when we entered into it, we're like, oh, millennials, they aren't saving for retirement. But no, it's like a third of the debt is held by people 45 and over. Yeah. Which was kind of a shocking fact. People are hitting retirement with Parent Plus loans.
Yeah.
So I think creating that sort of foundation for people is very important, but also helping the people who are approaching retirement to figure out how to get out of the crushing debt has also become a focus for us.
Yeah, and I love that idea of all of the other things that we don't really focus on, like being able to just be stress-free.
Yeah,
also.
Or have a kid or get married. People are postponing these major life events we don't think of as financial, but they are.
Yeah, instrumental to your life.
Yep.
Altogether.
Yep.
Yeah, excellent, awesome. All right, Yoni, I love your approach to storytelling. How do you know, though, that you have been successful on a given day? How do you know that you've told the right story to the right person at the right time?
Totally. So I think there's two ways to do it. The first is in the data, and so we as product marketers, beyond just being storytellers, we should be tracking activity and metrics pretty much across the entire funnel. So to put in perspective at G2, the things that I'm looking for in just one product launch would be top of funnel momentum, being MQLs that are generated as net new prospects versus upsell, sort of customer marketing MQLs as we call them internally, all the way through pipeline influenced. How quickly are sales folks that we've trained understanding the product and then getting on a first vision call to deliver that first pitch? How many of them are actually closing deals? And then how many of those products are actually being turned on? And so following your results sort of end to end give you some good perspective on the actual results behind the campaigns that you're launching. But the biggest thing that I try to preach at G2 that's a little bit more anecdotal is that for us as product marketers, we have to walk the walk and talk the talk. And so when we launch products, and we launch a lot at G2, to put in perspective, we go to market with a capability, not a webinar or anything like that, a new capability once a week under the solution suite. That's a lot of stuff. And so for the first 3 to 5 calls of every launch, I like to get on the phone myself. I'm not trying to take sales quota away from anybody, but let me get on the phone and actually deliver the message and see how it resonates on the line. Because at the end of the day, if we're writing it and it doesn't feel right with the buyers, we have to know immediately, probably as soon as we've gone to market, to make sure that we have time to go back and tweak. So I think it's that combination of anecdotal sort of data and influence by talking to the actual people you're selling to versus also sort of an end-to-end look at pipeline and funnel through your campaigns.
Yeah, and I imagine that your EQ that you talked about earlier too, and the ability of your speed to change that and the story is really fascinating.
Yeah.
Actually, keeping up with how quickly you have to go, it's awesome.
Definitely.
So I started off talking a little bit about persistence and how it really is the key to everything. Maybe we can just go down the line and talk about a story of persistence where you've just kept going despite the obstacles, despite the challenges, and really broken through. Just a little antidote.
Right. Well, I could talk about the risk and security review process. It was many months long, and at times, I just was apologizing to the startup, like, I'm really sorry we're putting you through yet another thing, but we did persist, and I think 2 weeks before we went live with the first pilot client in July, we made it through to the other end, and we're all like, are we done yet? Like, we weren't exactly sure if we were, across the finish line, but yeah, I mean, I feel confident now that, we're talking the same language as a startup, and when it comes time to, build something bigger, I feel very confident in their tech stack now. So it just gave me a level of confidence that I didn't, know what it involved before we had that conversation for months and months.
Yep, I'm glad you did.
So I think an example I would share in persistence. So before I took the responsibility of digital shopping, I was on our MPerks team. So for those not familiar with Meijer, it's a phone number-based loyalty and rewards platform. So you type in your phone number at the checkout lane, and you get coupons that you've clipped, rewards, etc. So 7-8 years ago, that program was very small. We were a small team of 4 or 5 people, and we believed in it, right? We thought it was going to make a big impact for the company, but it was small, right? And everything that we did didn't really move the needle, and so merchants didn't really care to use it. Our vendors didn't really care, and we felt like we were begging the company to try to really leverage this. And so what we started to do to pressure test it without people knowing is we would leak free coupons out into a blogger community just to see what kind of traction we got. And for a while we would do that, right? And we thought we were cool and we were doing this, and it was fun and exciting, and it really didn't do anything. And as the program grew, it got to the point where I'll never forget, we leaked an offer for a free jar of peanut butter out to the blogger network, and within 2 hours, none of our stores had a jar of peanut butter left on the shelves. And it was really like this eye-opening moment for us. It was like, uh-oh, and we got in trouble, right? But we didn't get fired or anything like that, obviously. But it was one of those moments where we were able to kind of prove, kind of behind the scenes, that we had this campaign and this tool now, the capability that could actually move the needle and do a lot. So it took a little bit of like a backdoor approach and kind of being a little bit of rogue, small team, kind of skunkwork style, and doing things that not everyone had on their radar and knew what we were doing. But we just kept doing it, and it was ultimately the kind of the tipping point for us to say, wow, we have something that can clearly move the needle and do something. And obviously now, ever since that, MPerks has become just a core part of what the Meijer brand is and how people can engage and save with the company.
Yeah, that's excellent. And so I'm always fascinated about why also. So why did you keep going? Did you just know that this was the right answer? Did you have a good gut feeling about it? Did you have data to support it?
Probably all of the above. I think for us, we are a younger team. We know that being the younger generation and a big retailer company, that this was something that we felt was important, right? And important for the customer, important for somebody who uses technology more, and using the Meijer, things like the Meijer app and going on and looking at loyalty and rewards. I mean, it's just important. And I think the company saw that too. I don't know that they necessarily knew maybe the right approach or the M-Perks would be kind of that catalyst. And so I think it was that. We had a great team, and I think challenging each other individually, kind of pushing the limits, testing the limits, things like that. So I think it was a blend of us as a team, our dynamic, our personality, but also a product that we believed in that was slow moving to start, but we kept after it because that was our responsibility, and we were able to eventually get something to move. So
Great. How about you, Yoni?
Yeah, so I think about persistence. I started at G2 about 8 months ago, and I came to G2 to build out the product marketing team. At the time, there wasn't any product marketing or go-to-market process, and so when I think about some of the more persistent moments I had, it was from day one establishing what was going to be our go-to-market blueprint for quite literally every activity that we launched at G2, whether that was an acquisition. There were 2 of them in my first 3 months. We moved really fast. A variety of products, all sorts of technical capabilities and features, and for a company that hadn't had product marketing up until that point, I don't know if up front they were the biggest fans of all of a sudden this new guy coming in and putting all this structure in, right? This was a company that had lived and breathed, the startup mantra of doing it live. And what they didn't want to see was process slowing down what they saw as activity and their ability to go to market. And what we actually were able to do is build such a decisive and prescriptive launch process for everything that we do, that instead of process becoming this inhibitor for pace and speed, it actually became a runway for us, because all of a sudden everybody across every stage of the product launch lifecycle, across product, marketing, and sales enablement, knew exactly what they needed to do to go to market successfully. And so we launched that about 8 months ago, and then about 3 weeks ago, we were a team of 3 now at G2, and we were named the top product marketing team in the country by the Product Marketing Alliance. And so as a result, all of a sudden the company is sort of bought in and sees the persistence at the end of the day to put those processes in place really paid off.
That's excellent. So do you rub it in at that point?
yes.
No.
Or do you just keep going with new ideas?
Yeah, they know.
Yeah.
No, at the end of the day, I think the best part about that process is that with that persistence of making sure that we're making the right business decisions and giving product and sales the support they need, is that we keep that process open. And so we're constantly evolving it, probably as often as our products do. So we have like our core 5 stages, but as new needs arise and the team has new ways of doing things, we make sure to incorporate their feedback in so they feel like they're as much a part of that process as we all do.
Great. All right, quickly here, just another round, and I'm going to start with you this time. Through this process also, you kind of touched on a little bit, you can't go at it alone, and you definitely need some support. So where do you look for support and partnership throughout this product development lifecycle?
Yeah, totally. I say this all the time. Great product marketing does not happen in a vacuum. We are a team of 3 supporting a product suite of at least 6 products that I can think of across a 400-person company that's now in 3 different continents. We can't do it all by ourselves. And so when I think about the partnerships that we have in place with the product managers, with our sales enablement function, we have a brand team of creative designers and writers that we are pretty much attached at the hip at. I call our writer my muse, which Eddie never likes, but he is my muse. We have
I can see why he may not.
Yeah, right. We have these amazing resources and partnerships with basically all the teams that we need to make those happen. So even though we're running point on the launches and very much acting as air traffic control, we have like a full-fledged partnership at every stage with product, with marketing on the demand gen and the customer marketing side of the fence as well, from creative all the way through sales and sales enablement. It's the partnerships that make all the difference.
Excellent.
Yeah, I admire, getting people aligned and on board is the job. It's what we focus on every day. And it was interesting when I got out of college, the first job I was in sales, and you're calling clients, and the internal politics, if you call it that, was non-existent, right? That was the easy part. It was just really interacting with the customer. Coming into a big company like Meijer, it was the complete opposite, right? Your job is essentially getting stakeholders and people across the company aligned. And I think the biggest challenge is when you have something new like digital, which again for traditional grocery retail is slow and it's new, it's hard to get buy-in and support. I think I found most successful is when you have 2,000 people on a corporate campus and you're trying to figure out who, building good connections with some of the leadership and being humble and open and honest about what you're looking to accomplish and getting feedback from them in kind of a mentorish way is always helpful, to just get somebody who you can engage with and get feedback on. I personally have a couple of them that have helped me throughout the years figure out how we need to approach things. And then more than anything, it's just being open and transparent about what you're looking to accomplish. And also, I think it's always helpful to put yourself in the other person's shoes, right? And think about like marketing and operations being like, two big ones that always kind of clash. But understanding what the operators are measured on, what are they held, accountable to, and then knowing that the things I'm going to do are going to greatly impact that, if nothing else, gives you that perspective so that when you have the conversation with them, it's not a us versus you, or you need to do what I need to, I'm trying to do. You at least have that point of view that you know how it's going to impact them, and you can have that more frank conversation with them around what you're up against and what you're being held accountable to pushing, and then what they're ultimately going to be impacted by. And I think finding ways to build those relationships and have that deeper dialogue, I've found very helpful over the years.
Yeah. There's really this theme about putting yourself in other people's shoes, not only through storytelling, but collaboration internally, figuring out what your stakeholders are looking for. So really key messages here for the product development team.
Yep. I was going to mention something similar, having worked in financial services for a while, and not picking on any company in particular. I've noticed that sometimes we design products and we put them out there and we're not exactly sure if they're going to be a market fit. This product, student debt product, is entirely customer focused and driven by a customer need. And it's been really refreshing because the story kind of tells itself. Like, we get verbatims from people who hear about this, and even the institutions that we're partnering with to design, reaching out to, for example, higher ed and medical institutions to design the next piece of it. They're so excited that we're doing this because they're like, well, this isn't really a moneymaker. We're like, yeah, but we recognize that this is a massive problem for your people. We have 15,000 institutional clients and something like 4.2 or 4.5 million people that they serve, and we serve all of those people. So, I mean, it's just, the story kind of tells itself at some point because we keep hearing these stories from the customers, and it's really heartwarming stuff when you can help somebody to the tune of $50,000 or whatever.
My favorite kind of project.
Yeah.
All right, so we are just out of time, but I want to thank all three of you very much. I know some of you have traveled in. I really appreciate that. Your stories are excellent. And to the audience too, thank you for sitting in and listening to our breakthrough go-to-market stories.